Here we are. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and hello to everybody. Thank you for joining. Looks like we've got a lot of folks trickling in here, so we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to come on in. A lot of good content going on today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to quickly upgrade VMware Cloud Foundation and import VMware vSphere clusters. Got some our hosts today. We've got John McDonald, Master Architect, VCF Portfolio Services Engineering Professional Services, VMware Cloud Foundation Division at Broadcom. Jonathan's a Master Architect on the VCF Portfolio Services and Engineering team at Broadcom, and his area of focus is with VMware Cloud Infrastructure technologies, including VMware vSphere, VMware vSAN, and VMware Cloud Foundation. And he participates in the development of validated solution architectures, comprehensive professional services, and technical training for our customer success. Also, we've got Cecilio Alvarado, Head of VCF Portfolio Services Engineering, Professional Services, VMware Cloud Foundation Division at Broadcom, and he serves as the head of the VCF Portfolio Services Engineering and Lifecycle Services at Broadcom. With over 30 years in the tech industry. He previously spent 15 years with Citigroup, leading various projects and teams, particularly in the distributed cloud services, which sparked his passion for VMware products and solutions. Gentlemen, thanks for joining today. How are you?
Doing
Good,
well.
thanks, Anders.
All
Yeah.
right. Good, good. Well, you know what? Hey, looks like everybody's settled in, so we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, let's do that. So, welcome to our webinar. And so, Anders, right now, if you could load the first poll, just so we can get that one running. We'll start walking through what we're going to be talking about today. And so this session sort of is a really good overview, I think, of the different things that we do from both a professional services standpoint, but also showcase on some of the really cool things that we do with VMware Cloud Foundation. So let's start through some of these pieces here. Your agenda today, we're going to go through basically an overview of VMware Cloud Foundation, and so I think it's something where what I wanted to do is give a kind of a high level overview of some of the pieces, just to make sure that we're level setting on exactly the the different pieces that we're going to be talking through. We're then going to be moving in. I'm going to be showcasing an upgrade of VMware Cloud Foundation 5.2.1, and so this is something that I did right in my lab, and I did the painstaking efforts of actually editing the videos and all that sort of thing. So this is definitely, it was a live environment when I did it, that sort of thing. So hopefully that's going to be something where we won't kill you to death with slides. It'll be definitely something where we're going to show you the exact process that I went through. We'll then transition into the brand new importing vSphere function that is a part of 5.2. And so I guess kind of why we're doing the 5.2 angle is because it is a new feature there. And so we want to show you kind of the pieces of that as well. And then, once we get through that, we're going to go into a Q&A. And so Cecilia is going to be helping out, moderate some of the questions and, answer them, as we go through the session. So let's get started today on, the overview. And so with VMware Cloud Foundation, it's something where I love this slide, and I always tend to sort of showcase it when I start talking about an overview of some of these pieces, and that's because it sort of shows the big picture of what VMware is aiming for, with the Cloud Foundation release. And so you can see on on the right hand side, we have sort of the different things that we're kind of focusing on, right? And so we have the modernized infrastructure, right, which that's really all about what we're talking about today. The second one is that the cloud-ready experience for developers, and that sort of focuses very much on the self-service, the DevOps, AI, that sort of stuff. And finally, the third sort of business pillar that we go through is that security and resilience. And so that's where we go into like security, compliance, disaster recovery, that sort of thing. Then you go back over to the to the left-hand side, you can sort of see that private cloud platform, right? We have the compute storage networking, topped off with the automation and orchestration piece that really is that private cloud IaaS platform that we've been sort of talking about with our products like technologies for several years. And so my team, Cecilio, leads obviously, and we've embraced these three kind of focus areas to really showcase how VMware Professional Services at VMware by Broadcom delivers a lot of these components when we're asked to by a customer. And so this is something where it's allowed us to develop our offerings in a very much more streamlined way. And with VMware Cloud Foundation, we can expedite almost all of the common operation procedures that customers face when we start to work with the building block that I call VMware Cloud Foundation. And so what I mean by that is a building block as a construct of VMware Cloud Foundation really is what we call a workload domain. And so the VMware Cloud Foundation construct is a series of workload domains. And so these are purpose-built units, I should say, of private cloud capacity. And so these workload domains allow us to standardize quite a few different things, right? Such as the architecture, allowing you to scale, allowing you to update, right? Allowing you to move away from those really separate silos for each different architecture, each different environment that you have in that series of custom infrastructure into something that's much more flexible and allows you to really create a robust system for your environment. And so each workload domain that we configure has targeted set of compute, storage, networking, and security that's automatically deployed and configured when you start to use the VMware Cloud Foundation automation. And so once you have a single workload domain operational, you can then start to add other workload domains to it. And so this incredibly powerful construct saves a crazy amount of time and allows us, like I said, to approach stuff in a very much more standardized way. And so the initial design is probably one of the most time-consuming activities that that professional services and even my team undertake. And when we start talking about doing this for customized stuff in environment, that's where you start to see how powerful VMware Cloud Foundation sort of functions and pieces are. And so what does this actually look like kind of in practice? Well, so when you start to work through VMware Cloud Foundation, right, you really have to get the environment deployed. So that's where the management domain you can sort of see on our slide here sort of fits into it, right? And so that is the initial sort of deployment of VMware Cloud Foundation, which lets us basically have the functional ability that all the different workflows have. And so once we have that done, we can then go ahead and we can run all these automated workflows to do various number of things. We'll talk through some of those things later on in the presentation as well as on the next slide. And really what that sort of means is that once you are ready to, for example, deploy another environment, we can use that workflow to create another VI workload domain. And so that allows us to configure another piece of software-defined infrastructure that could be managed and configured separately from any of the other workload domains if that's something that you need. And so as a part of that workflow, the SDC Manager appliance will go and it will configure the domain of ESXi hosts, and that'll be configured in a dedicated cluster. This cluster will run on its own dedicated virtual center server, and it will have the dedicated storage and a choice of whether you want to have a dedicated or a shared NSX networking fabric that gets applied to that block of capacity, right? And so customers also have a choice when we're deploying of many different options from a workload domain perspective. And so that could be how you're deploying the SSO piece, right? So is that linked with other virtual centers or is it not? Also, it means you can have the choice of whether you're going to use images to update or if you're going to use baselines to update, that type of flexibility. And so each one of these units can be independently scaled up, scaled down. It can be lifecycle managed, patched, upgraded. Essentially using our SDC Manager workflows, the many manual tasks that happen as a part of any bring up are automated. And so it basically takes depending on the environment, depending on the number of hosts, it takes approximately 2 hours to deploy a lot of these, at least from my experiences in the environment. So I think that this is just one example of how powerful I think that SDC Manager and VCF really truly are to an administrator's toolbox. Now, I talked a little bit about the workflows, but let's go into in more depth, obviously, what I mean by all the different automation workflows that we have. And so on the slide are a series of different workflows for deployment, lifecycle management, scaling, day two operations. And so although the initial deployment that's listed is that one-time bring up operation, that is something where it automates over 150 manual tasks. And so once that's complete, there are numerous other workflows, as you can see on the slide, which can be used. And so the latest couple of things that we've added to this configuration, it's really all along that import and conversion functionality. And so that's something we're going to be talking about in quite a bit of depth later in the session. But essentially, this is something where we're continually adding. It's been one of the most requested features. And so if you've seen my latest blog, I know that we've posted a few blogs recently, but I go through a bunch of my favorite features and all that that can make a huge difference to the amount of time an administrator has to take on doing any one of these kind of operations. So I won't go into detail on every single one of these things on a slide. I'd be talking for hours. I don't know that you guys have time, or I definitely don't have time to get nitty gritty on each of these things. But I've been a big fan of the workflows that VMware Cloud Foundation provides ever since I was introduced to it back with version 2.x now. So it was a much different platform then. But I do have a pretty big history in VMware support, and I had to deal with how painful changing certificates was for customers, and how complex an upgrade could be. And so that's something where that's one of the biggest pieces of operational efficiency is to move to to VMware Cloud Foundation in your environment. And so with vSphere alone, most of these tasks are things that are not really automated. I mean, you might have a wizard that would help you through some of the pieces of it, but you'd have to do it pretty much manually, or you'd have to script that deployment to be able to to have some automation for that. And so with VMware Cloud Foundation, this is where we have a significant amount of these out of the box kind of configuration procedures that that we have. And so that's what I have from from an overview perspective. I hope that gives some context to where I'm coming from for both my love for VCF, but also for the rest of this webinar. And so for the rest of the topics that we're going to be covering today, we really have two of our most common scenarios going to be covered, right? And so that is, first, a customer who already has VMware Cloud Foundation deployed but isn't running version 5.2, and so therefore you'd be in need of an upgrade to be able to actually use some of the the functionality of 5.2. And so obviously that is what's required to be on 5.2 for the second feature, which is really all on the import and upgrade functionality of VMware Cloud Foundation. And so once you have upgraded to 5.2, the import feature is going to let you take any number of other vCenter server environments and actually import them into SDC Manager so that they can be used with all these different features that VCF kind of provides. And so that's something where I'm hoping that these will be super useful demos. It's definitely something that I really have enjoyed creating some of the pieces of content for this. So I'm hoping you guys enjoy. Okay, so first up, let's go through the VMware Cloud Foundation upgrade. And so, as I said before, I don't want to kill people with slides. It's definitely something where you've probably guessed that upgrading is one of my favorite features of VMware Cloud Foundation. So I have a single slide, and then we'll jump right into the demo. And so when I talk about the concept of organizational lifecycle processes for customers, with VMware Cloud Foundation, this is something that has to be front and center, because VMware Cloud Foundation is very much something that changes a lot of that workflow from the traditional way that people are used to doing these upgrades, right? And so the way that the upgrade functionality works with VMware Cloud Foundation is that VMware will, update, a bundle, and that bundle will be, used when we do need to, patch the environment. And so with SDC Manager deployed and available in the environment, it will provide a notification that, we have created and provided a new bundle upload, and that it is going to be available to whatever specific environment or environments that you're running. And so these are updated and released on a regular basis to to the Broadcom depot for download, and each bundle will contain updated components that will make up the entire SDDC stack, and that are all tested and validated by VMware to work together as a single platform. And so this is something where, in the past, some of the biggest issues that I have personally seen as a part of support is somebody would update one component, but they forgot they have 3 or 4 other components that would be connecting in, and maybe one of those components is is not supported to connect to that version of vCenter or ESX that you have available. And so the beauty of this is that once we release an update, they can be reviewed. You can assess them. You can get a good understanding of what it is that the update is going to be providing, and you can see whether which workload domains that update would apply to. And so you can then, when you're ready to apply an update, you can run the pre-check. And that will be, typically, in my opinion, you should run it before you do any update. And so this is something that will make sure that you have all of the components healthy and optimally configured for the best chance of success with the upgrade. And so this is going to be something where once the pre-check is done, any issues will be presented to you before upgrade, and we'll show an example of a couple of issues as we go through our demo. And you can see which thing we're going to apply those updates to. You can then schedule them at a specific date and time, such as during a maintenance window. And then, once that's running, you can then monitor and you can review the update results. And so being a fully automated system allows you to patch and update really very quickly, but it also is something that takes away a lot of that complexity, compared to like a manual approach. So that is kind of the the high level overview of that patch management process. But before we jump to the demo, I also wanted to mention something for our seasoned administrators of Cloud Foundation, and that is a new feature that's added to the 5.2.x, which addresses the whole async patch process that we've had in the past. And so with VMware Cloud Foundation, we have a very structured bill of materials, and so the components were needed to be in obviously a very specific workflow and a very specific version. And so with the async patch process, we had a bunch of command line utilities that have now been incorporated into the GUI and to the actual workflows. And so you'll no longer have to wait for an out-of-band product release, and you can apply these critical patches and stuff that may come out, as soon as they become available. And so it's something where we no longer are very targeted specifically to that BOM only, and have a whole bunch of manual steps to to kind of do these pieces. So it's a great feature. I've used it a couple times. I hope you see kind of where I'm coming from, why I think this is one of my favorite features of VMware Cloud Foundation. So let's actually jump into our demo, and you can see this is a video. I mean, it's something where I didn't have time, obviously, to show a 3 or 4 hour video. However, what we're going to be starting with is we're going to be basically going through the process that I've taken in my environment to update from one version to another. And so we're going to actually do a skip version upgrade as a part of this, because this is an older version. And so if I basically start through kind of what we're going through, right, you can see the version I'm on version 5.0.1. You can see we already have 5.2.1 available. And so this is something where I'm going to actually jump right to the 5.2.0 version. And to start by doing that, you'll see the bundle process, right? And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to click the download button on the different bundles that I want to be able to apply. And so I'm going to click on 3 or 4 of these bundles here. Obviously, I don't want to sit here and I don't want to sit here and just watch the download happen. And so this can take a significant amount of time based on the number and the size of bundles. So we're going to speed through some of this configuration of the patching here, right? So you'll see it start to go. Once those patches are downloaded and available, you can then go from here, and you can see they're no longer listed in the window. But if you go to the patch history, you can see the different bundles that I did download. So you can see the 3 or 4 bundles that I have downloaded there. I can then go to apply those. So I click into my workload domain that I have and click onto the updates tab. And so before I can do anything, I do have to plan my upgrade. So I'm going to plan the upgrade to version 5.2.1. And I'm going to confirm that. And you can see the different versions that that are available that will be source and target. And once I click confirm, you're going to start to see that bundle process go. You're going to see the 0 bundles applied. You can see the versions that I'm working through. Before I run the upgrade, I'm going to run the pre-check. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select 5.2.1 for the target version. Make sure I have my components selected, and I'm going to run this pre-check. And so the pre-check can take a few minutes to run. Obviously, we've set it up here in in the video. However, it's going to go through a multitude of different checks for each of the different pieces, that will allow us to get to a point where you're going to be confident that when we click the upgrade, that we're going to be good to go. And so in my pre-check here, I have 4 errors, as you can see. So I've got a lot of pass, a bunch of errors. If I click on the errors, I can click into this, and you can see my SCSI controller, and I can see an upgrade bundle. And so if I click on the upgrade bundle, I didn't download this specifically, so I could show an example of an error message. The SCSI controller, it is a nested environment I was on, so of course it's going to be there. So you can see easily fixable, some of these your configurations, but once we've gone through, made sure there are no critical errors and we've got any of them fixed, you can see for SDC Manager, everything is green. We can then go into the actual update process, and we can go and we can kick off the upgrade. So there are two different types of upgrade workflows, and SDC Manager is kind of that first style, right? And so if I click update now for my SDC Manager, because we're updating the platform that we're using for updates, what'll happen is you're going to start to see the management screen go to the upgrade screen, right? And so this is the only process that uses this type of, I don't want to call it a lockout screen, but it's it's a restriction, so nobody can go in and use SDC Manager whilst upgrading. So this will usually take about a half an hour, give or take, depending on the size and the age of the appliance. And once that's done, you can see I can click finish, and now I've got SDC Manager updated. So of course this is going to take more than the 10 seconds that it took for to run through that, but it is something where we get to a point where that's as simple as some of these come, right? And so if I go back into my updates tab, you'll now see that if I go down once this loads here, you can see that I've got that first step done, and the next step is within NSX. And so with NSX, I can go in and I'm going to apply that patch as well. And so I can configure that update. And the first thing it does is a pre-check. And so we're going to select the configuration options for each of the different things that is deployed in my environment from an NSX perspective. And once that's done, you're going to see the pre-check process kick off. And so that pre-check, just like what we did in the general pre-check, is going to go through again, the different pieces for NSX. So this is going to take a few minutes. Doesn't usually take too long. You can click into to view the details as well, and you can see all the different pieces of how and what we're looking for at NSX. NSX is healthy in my environment. I don't have any errors, so I should be good to go to to apply my update without any issue. I'm going to go down, hit the schedule on this one, and once we're scheduled, we can basically sit and watch the second way that things are done. So this is something where once you start to apply the updates for the subsequent patch products, you're going to see it actually show a status, as you can see here, in our upgrade window, in our VMware Cloud Foundation window. And you'll see all the different components kind of you go through. And so I don't have any edge cluster on this one. I didn't configure one for this environment. However, it does have the host cluster and management cluster. So this is probably the most time-consuming piece of any of the upgrades, and that really is because NSX does have quite a few more pieces and components that that apply there. So it is something where it's going to take. I think it took about 3 hours, if I remember, in this particular instance. Definitely something though that don't have to sit through and watch it. Just let it go. If there are any errors, it'll let you know. And you can see, it took 3 hours, 13 minutes for for this bundle to update, but it did go successfully. I didn't have any errors through that. Next up, obviously, is is Virtual Center. So you can already start to see how these different changes are. I'm going to pause here for just a second because this is another really awesome functionality that we just added. And so we do have two ways of updating Virtual Center now, right? So first is the reduced downtime upgrade. So if you guys you have ever used any of the cloud service specific and facing products, that's something where the reduced downtime upgrade will deploy a brand new appliance and migrate the configuration to it. So there's only about 5 minutes of downtime with that. Versus regular vCenter upgrade where it's going to be down the entire time that upgrade process is running. Now in our case, on this one, I'll start this video up here again. In our case, it's something where we're going to run through just a regular upgrade. I mean, it's something that is not super intensive, but it is something where I don't have anything production to worry about. It's just an example environment. So you can see we make sure we have a backup. We'll schedule an update, and it's going to go through and it's going to run through this vCenter upgrade. And so you can see that with Cloud Foundation, it's something where we have a very targeted way of doing upgrades, right? And so the way that it updates things are in the appropriate order to make sure we have the highest chance of success for these pieces. So vCenter looks like it took about an hour for me to upgrade in this scenario, and similar thing from the last component now, which is ESX, which I did download. And we'll be able to go in and configure that upgrade in very much the same way. Now, with lifecycle managers, you also have to make sure you have an image. And so in this case, we're going to assign the image. And so this is an image of the version of ESX I need, right? And we'll click that and we'll assign the image. This is something where I've already imported this. You'll have to do that as well. A very simple process to do, but once we have that image assigned, it's going to run through and it will do, the upgrade of ESX. And so one of the things I want to show as a part of this, and so we'll show a couple of different things here is kind of what an error message looks like. And so when I ran my hardware compliance checks, and so this is something where that pre-check again, you're seeing it run as a part of this workflow. I'm using a virtualized platform for this. And so it's something where I immediately always get an error message, right? So if I go into an error message here, you can start to see all the different things, right? And so in my particular case, I know that I'm going to get this error message because the SCSI controller is a virtualized one, and so therefore this is why we're seeing some of these error message that we see, right? And so because I know that this is something that is an acceptable error in my case, I can proceed with the actual upgrade. But many times what we've seen is that there is something that need to be addressed, and so that could be a firmware version, for example, and that's something where we need to basically address that. So in this case, I'm going to click upgrade through here, and basically get the process started for the upgrades. Again, very, very easy to diagnose many of these errors, and so it's something where you're going to recognize sort of the difference in this workflow comparatively to others. What I do want to show you though is that this isn't something that you just have to sit and look at the screen. If I click over to my vSphere inventory, right, I can basically go in and I can actually watch the process of the upgrade happen. And so this is the same with each of the different components we've upgraded. I'm only going to show it for the ESXi host here, but essentially you can actually watch the actual upgrade go right from within the vSphere client. And so you can see that we've started the compliance checking, and it'll run through each of the different hosts that I have in this cluster. And we'll get to a point where you're going to be able to see that, hey, yeah, we did complete these upgrades, and everything kind of goes from there. So if I click back over to SCC Manager, you see it took about 34 minutes for that. I can go in and I can see that now my environment is up to speed with 5.2.1. The only thing left is the configuration option updates. And so this used to be the config bundle. This is something now that's all right in here, and it's a very simple thing. You just click to apply the different options. So I've done that, and you can see that now I have nothing else. I could plan patching if I want. But if I go into my release versions, you'll see that my workload domain now is on that 5.2.1 version. And so I know that was quite a bit of of me talking, a lot of sort of configuration of product, a lot of different workflows that I showed. If you have any questions, definitely let us know of what they are, right? We can answer some of them maybe here at the end of the session. But in general, this is the workflow. This is the process that we see when we do an SDC Manager update. So I hope that this was something that I know I made it look pretty easy, but I hope it's something that you can see that we're not doing anything crazy, but we're automating, and we're really providing a pretty awesome interface to make sure that upgrades are successful and all that in our environment. So with that, let us take a look at our second topic, right? And so now that we have that 5.2.1 interface in VMware Cloud Foundation, this is where we can start to get into some of the new topics, right? Which that is the import or convert of a regular VMware vSphere instance into that Cloud Foundation instance that we just deployed. So let's get into what that means and what that looks like. Right, and so with VCF 5.2, we now have this tool called the VCF Import Tool, and so this allows us to transition any of the typical vSphere infrastructure that we have into a VMware Cloud Foundation instance. Now there are some restrictions right now, such as, for example, NSX. If you already have that deployed, you can't yet import, but it is something that we're working through some of those challenges and things like that. So rather than deploying a fresh new VMware Cloud Foundation instance, if you already have VMware Cloud Foundation, the benefit of this is that you can import a vSphere vSAN environment to be managed by VMware Cloud Foundation, right? And so the convert process, that is something where if you don't have SDC Manager already deployed, right? So maybe it's you just have vSphere right now, that's where you would be able to basically convert your existing domain and deploy an SDC Manager. Now in this demo, right, and in this webinar, we're not going to be talking about the conversion process, but it's very much the same as the import process. And so that import process is when you already have VMware Cloud Foundation deployed, and you want to be able to import an existing vCenter server into that environment. So let's take a look at the different steps that are required for this configuration. So step one, the first step of our configuration procedures is really, again, I've said it on the last couple of slides as well, is pre-checks, right? And so all the pre-checks and all the different things that you need to be able to do to actually import, they're all listed in, this piece of VMware documentation right here, right? You can see, that there's a big list of stuff. But because there are quite a few different things, the import tool actually has a check feature built right in. And so there right now in the 5.2.1 version are 103 checks that it goes through. And so this allows you to see exactly what you would need to fix or change in your environment to meet the requirements of being able to import. And so this is basically taking some of those standardized best practices that we have in VMware Cloud Foundation and just making sure that when we import the environment, you're going to be in an acceptable state that is similar to what we would deploy if we're doing a fresh VMware Cloud Foundation installation. And so oftentimes that whole remediation process, that is probably the most time-consuming process of any one of these different things for an administrator. And that's where I think that professional services, if you have errors that you don't know how to fix, that's where we can really help get into the weeds with those particular error messages and basically get to to a point where we're going to be able to get that imported as quickly as possible. So let's actually take a look first at first one of our videos here, right? And that is really regarding how do you do that pre-check? And so in this demo, this is a different vSphere environment that I just have in my lab, and you can see it's got a cluster of 4 hosts. I've done a bunch of pre-configuration on this just to to be aware, because I didn't want to have a whole bunch of different error messages that we walk through when we go through it. But let's get into what does it look like when we run that pre-check, and how can you look at any of the errors that could be remediated? And so in this case, let's flick over to my environment. You can see that I have the tool set, the VMware Import Tool already configured in this particular folder in SCC Manager, and I can run our brownfield PY check script to basically go through and check this. And so I'm going to run the script, enter the admin password, and let it run the actual pre-check in the environment. So it takes a few minutes usually to run this. Nothing too crazy, I would say. But once it goes through and it checks those, you can see I have 1 failed check and I have 102 successful checks. So we can then go in to look at the output of that. And so we'll go into the output folder. I'm just going to load up the YAML file here. There is a CSV file that you can open up Excel as well if that's the method you prefer. In this case, you'll just open up the YAML. You can see that in my case, the issue is that I have too old of a version of DVS, right? It's on an older version, and you need to be on 703. And so what I can then do is I can go back over to my environment and take a look and work through fixing that, right? So this could happen on any number of those different configuration things. You can see I'm on version 6.6 here. I go in, I'm just going to upgrade this switch to to version 8, so that way we're on the latest version, because that's what we're deployed anyway. And once we do that, I've now addressed that issue. And so there is everything from port groups, configurations, everything like that you go through in those error messages. In this case, once I fix that, I'm just going to run the the check utility again, make sure we get a successful output. It's something that they're very well documented, but again, if you have any issues with them, we're here to help, to make sure you get through there. You can see here now that I ran that, we have 103 successful checks. There's nothing that's failed, and that's something where I think we're ready to go and to actually use the import tool to actually bring this environment that I was showcasing into my VMware Cloud Foundation instance. So this is something where, as you can see, it's command line, but it is something that we think, at least I think, have done a really good job at configuring some of these pieces. All right, so let's get into step 2, which is preparing for import. And so that is basically downloading a couple pieces of content. And so that tool that I was running, this is where you can download right from the Broadcom downloads page under drivers and tools for VMware Cloud Foundation. You can see both the import tool, and so we need that. Obviously, it needs to be deployed on your appliances, but also the the software installer bundle as well. And so this is for NSX. NSX is a required bundle here. I mean, it's something where if you don't we will deploy an NSX instance when we do convert a regular environment into VMware Cloud Foundation. We believe it's a very powerful tool, and so it's part of the Cloud Foundation mantra and what we do. So that's the first thing. We need to make sure we have those downloaded and uploaded to the SDC Manager appliance. And then obviously, because we do need to deploy a new NSX instance as a part of an import, we also have to fill out the JSON file. So this is just something where we list a bunch of different things such as license keys, passwords, the bundle that we're importing, etc. DNS names, IP addresses. So there's nothing that is too difficult here. Just have to replace the values of that. And then this file also would need to be updated to the appliance as well. Now, finally, before we actually jump into the demo of this, something where this is how you would run the import. And so because we're deploying NSX as a part of the import process, when we actually run the VCF import feature here, right? And you can see the tag is switched to import. We specify the NSX path. It actually does all the pre-checking for NSX right as a part of the actual import process, right? So in this case, I didn't upgrade the bundle, so I could show you what an error message looks like. And so this is what you would see if you don't have a valid bundle at the path. And so you're going to work through those issues. Other things like DNS configuration are also things we work through right in this process. And so this allows us to validate all of that configuration as we go through it. So let's jump right into the demo actually with this pieces. And so we'll jump back over to that same appliance that we were on. And so again, I already have the the script there, and you can see I have the import running. So I just have to enter the password for SDC Manager as well as our virtual center server. And once that's done, you're going to start to see all the different things that will be done as a part of this configuration. So throughout this, you're going to have to accept some thumbprints from each of the different components, such as virtual center, ESXi host, etc. And so we're going to run through this. You'll see it also go through, make sure that that the guardrail stuff or the the different pre-checks that we did are already passing as well. So that's something where we do another final check. It'll then again ask for the host keys, and you'll start to see that we're doing things like creating service accounts and actually importing this stuff right into SDC Manager. And so you can see, in a second here, I'm going to switch back over to my SDC Manager instance, and once I refresh this window, you can actually see the progress of that import actually go on right as a part of the regular workflows in VMware Cloud Foundation. And so you can see we're doing everything from initializing the domain to uploading the personality. And so that personality, what it means is that is the the image that's used for that particular host. And so it's going to update the images that are used in that cluster. And it'll take a few minutes, obviously, to run this. You'll see that if I refresh a couple times there, yep, it's actually gone because I sped through it. But you can see that once that's done, we are going to move on to the next step in our process. And so flipping back over to the script running, you can see that we're now proceeded on to uploading the NSX bundle, and so we're uploading that, and it's going to run through the validation. So this takes a few minutes to to run the validation. So I don't need to necessarily sit here and wait, but it will take like I said, a couple of minutes for that to run through. Make sure the NSX bundle is validated and good to go, and then it's going to start deploying NSX as as a part of this. And so once we're ready, we hit yes, and then you'll start to see the the NSX deployment go through. And this is very much a similar kind of process as to when we actually are creating a workload domain, where it's just going to be doing that. And so once this is actually running, we can actually flick back over into our SDC Manager instance, do another refresh, and you'll see the the NSX configuration going. And so if I click into that, you can see all the different tasks that will run through for NSX. Again, it's going to take quite a few minutes for for that to go. So I'm going to speed through the configuration here, so you see a bunch of the different pieces. But that is kind of where you start to see the power of this, right? How we're doing all these numerous tasks there. Once NSX is fully deployed, you can see looks like it took a couple hours to deploy there from 12:47 until looks like 3:43. But once it's done, you can see that we do have a successful completion of the import. You'll see we have a couple of warning messages, nothing that is critical here for that. And so if we go back over, obviously we can see that's done. And we're going to refresh our screen again. And you'll see that my my workload domain is imported with the names and everything that I have. So you can see that I have my NSX, all the different vCenter bits, everything like that, completely all imported. I then can go into my updates, and you can see that I'm on 5.1. And so yeah, I can go in and I can plan my patching or plan my upgrade. And so in this case, I'm going to show just 5.2.1, what it would look like, right? Showing that you're basically getting the same functionality that we saw in the last demo for this particular environment that I imported, right? So I have done nothing other than basically turn it on and all that. And you can see that if I were to proceed forward with this upgrade path, you'll see that I will run through basically the 3 steps, and that's done. That's our plan. That's how we would run through the upgrade of that. So hopefully this shows how powerful and how quickly we can get stuff imported into VMware Cloud Foundation as a part of a lot of this configuration process, right? So it's something where again, you can see the the configuration of the updates. It's there. You can do it. So we're really, I think, able to see how quickly and how efficiently we can utilize a lot of these configuration procedures as a part of bringing and importing one of your environments into Cloud Foundation. So I really hope that these 2 demos that we've shown have been super informative. Definitely something that I'm hoping you're seeing my love for some of these features and why it's so powerful to to just move off of vSphere and get onto VCF. Because of all these different features and automation functions. So with that, let us move on to our question and answer period. So I'm going to pass this to you, and we can go through some of the questions and answers in our in our chat.
Sorry, couldn't find my mute button. So yeah, we have a great session, Jonathan. Good job there showing the capabilities of upgrading and importing/converting. The few questions we have here that were submitted are, can you talk more about the NSX restrictions and requirements in the import process?
I sure can, definitely. Before we do that, Cecilia, quickly, can we just get that second poll running as well? I just want to make sure that we get that poll running. But yeah, let's talk about NSX. So NSX is something where, in previous versions of VCF 5.2, so in the initial release, we didn't actually have an NSX mandate. It is something where in 5.2.1 we have brought that back, and that's because it's a very important part for our complete vision of an SDC, and so our engineering teams felt that because every other VCF instance has NSX involved, that they wanted to make sure that it was available. Even if we don't immediately start using it, it's definitely something that will be there and part of the configuration. So it is something that is a little bit of a confusing requirement because yeah, we don't actually support importing with NSX yet, but that is something that we're hoping that we're going to be coming forward with as well in the future. So it is definitely something where again, important feature. And we want to make sure that when we're doing these imports and everything like that, we're setting everybody up for for success.
Yeah, great. The next question we have: you make all of the processes look so easy in the demos you showed. Is this always the case?
So I think that it kind of depends on this one. And so if you have a really large or complex environment, there are many more opportunities where you'd see different errors or warnings that that we presented. In my demos, I show you that they were completely real. I didn't not show any piece of that except for the meantime where you're sitting there waiting for things to happen. I know that my environments were more of a clean environment, so it's not something where you have every day-to-day activity going on there. So it is something where a known good configuration is obviously a lot easier to perform these things on than maybe one that's used every day and has some remediation required. In my upgrade example, the only thing I really did was I configured the environment the way that it needed to be configured. It's something where I didn't want to show 50 different things that needed to be fixed. But yeah, I mean, it's something where it was I think only 4 or 5 things that that we had to do anyway. You just basically given my environment. So our professional services teams, they have a multitude of experience with upgrades, with customer requirements, making sure we have successful upgrades. So if there is something where you run through the checks, you don't know how to configure this, that is something where we're more than happy to help with making sure you have a successful plan for a lot of these things.
Yeah, exactly. The next question is, can I really take advantage of all of the VCF features as soon as the import is done?
100%. It's one of the reasons why I'm such a big supporter of taking the jump to VCF, and part of the reason why I want to promote this through this webinar is that we provide so many different operational efficiencies that can ease not only just your regular deployments, but a lot of that day 2 operational burden as well. Like we never talked about it in this session, but some of the certificate management, pass-through rotation workflows, they're by far some of my favorite features, obviously other than the lifecycle management, that are there, right? And so we can basically make very easy work of replacing certificates for all the different components in the click of a couple of buttons. So yes, definitely you can take advantage of all these features as soon as you have stuff imported.
Yeah, great. And this is a duplicate question, one that I answered in chat already. But if you want to touch on it further, in the official VMware docs, you state we can convert or import. What is the difference?
Yeah, so I think I touched on this a little bit in some of the slides I had earlier. But really the difference is that with the convert, it means you don't have an SDC manager instance running. Whereas in an import, you already have to have an SDC manager because what you're doing is you're basically taking an existing environment and importing it into that SDC manager. So the main difference here really is that you're going to be deploying SDC manager as a part of that conversion process. And it does have a more strenuous requirement for like versions, right? So you could have to upgrade the version of vCenter in the one you want to convert, that sort of thing. So that's really the the main difference here.
Great. Yeah, same answer I provided in the chat. When using the import capability, will it include automation or operations?
Yeah, so at this time we don't have any support for importing VCF or VCF automation or operations into VCF at this point. It's targeted to the core vSphere vSAN configuration components. That doesn't mean that it can't be used or that we can't basically deploy VRS LCM, the lifecycle management component for ARIA, and basically start to leverage it in the same way. But yeah, we don't do imports on those pieces at this point.
Great. And this next question I'll probably take, how can Broadcom help me with my upgrade? So within Broadcom Professional Services, we have a huge amount of experience doing upgrades of VCF. And some of what was built was based on the team within PS that deliver these upgrades. We have some great offerings at a very low cost where the team can come in and do lifecycle services that can be tied to your VCF subscription, meaning you would be entitled to an upgrade once a year for the life of that subscription. I would recommend all customers to take advantage of that opportunity where you need it, where you want assistance and support from the experts that know how to do this and have been doing this day in and day out. So that I would highly recommend. I have a couple more questions I'll touch on, just looking at the time, making sure we're okay. A few more that we'll cover. Does the SDDC manager with VCF require a management and workload domain? Is it usable, applicable with a single cluster setup?
So it does not require to have both a management domain and a workload domain. You can do what's called a consolidated deployment. So that will be where we would deploy, the management domain, obviously, and everything would still run in that particular cluster. So there is no need to to do anything crazy there. It's something where you can still run in a single cluster environment, and then obviously the beauty is that if you do have another environment that you're going to be either deploying or that you want to import, at a later date you can do that, and it turns it from that consolidated viewpoint into something where you're more of a standard architecture where you have both. So yes, you can.
Okay, and a couple more. With NSX, you can do upgrades without maintenance mode and use in-place upgrades. Does the SDDC manager allow for this? Normally needs manually setting in an NSX upgrade.
So as far as I'm aware, right now the SDDC manager only does the way I showed, right? So it only does the the maintenance mode specific upgrade, and this is just to be super safe in making sure we're not impacting workloads.
Exactly. Where is the new async patching that you referenced in 5.2?
It is right on the window where we schedule the patch planning. It's right beside the patch, or sort of the upgrade planning. There's two buttons now. One's for upgrade, one's for patching. When you click the patching one, it'll present a list of options for you to be able to do the patches as well. And so if you go in, you download the bundle for whatever version of Virtual Center you did. And so in that environment that I was showing, I actually wanted to play with that a little bit, and I actually upgraded the Virtual Center server beyond the version that is 5.2.1 Virtual Center. So yeah, it's right in that same interface on the upgrades page, where instead of scheduling an update, you schedule a patch. And once you have the patch there, you can select a version and it'll run through it in the same exact way for the actual upgrade.
Yes, great. And possibly the last question, are the pre-checks built into the Cloud Builder VM?
So the pre-checks for the initial bring up are built into the Cloud Builder VM. The pre-checks I showed here are built into the SDDC Manager appliance. So two separate pre-checks, but yeah, they are built in and will be updated with every your release as we need.
Okay, I think we're going to pause it there. Again, Jonathan, great session here. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed.
Let me pull this up as well here, just for reference there, Cecilia, as well.
Oh yes, right. Here is the resources slide. Some great information all of you can grab from here if you want to take a screenshot. It will also be made available with a follow-up from this session. But everyone, thank you for your time. There are some questions left over in the Q&A. We will look at those and follow up on those questions post this session. But thank you everyone for your time, and we hope you enjoyed this session and took a lot from it. Follow up with us, follow up with your Broadcom VMware account team. And if you need assistance, please don't hesitate to look into the offerings that can help you with lifecycle services. Thanks all.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.